Mercedes was definitely a long way from being able to fight for the podium at the Bahrain Formula 1 Grand Prix. Even with the good reviews it got at the end of 2022 and the work it did for this year, it seems to have started to fall behind Aston Martin in the competitive order. And there are important decisions to be made, like how to move forward in a different way than the current plan. Now, Toto Wolff has said that the car will change for the next Grand Prix because of all of this, but can these changes bring anything new to the table? After a crazy 2022 season, Mercedes stuck to their guns and kept their unique zero sidepod design. During the Sakir weekend though, Red Bull, Ferrari and Aston Martin were ahead of them. Mercedes had a bad day, but it wasn't as bad as Aston Martin's unexpected rise. Due to the problems with the 2022 car, Mercedes is finally able to see how far behind it's fallen in the last year. At the end of FP2, Hamilton was in 8th place after drivers from Aston Martin, Red Bull Racing, Ferrari, Haas and Alpine. George Russell didn't even make the top 10, so had to be happy with 13th place. Even though Hamilton was only 0.636 seconds behind the leader, which was about a tenth faster than in FP2 in Bahrain last year, he was most worried about his long run speed, which was slower than both Alonso and Verstappen. He felt bad about the race and the rest of the season because of this. Now, during the previous season, the team had problems like porpoising, bottoming out, a lot of drag and strange behaviour when turning. To solve these problems, the team had to give their aerodynamics package a strong base. The answer to this problem is the W14 Proto. It gives you a base that works well and doesn't drag or bottom out. And according to these reports, this is what happened at the Bahrain GP. On top of that, the team had to test the power unit's reliability and efficiency to make sure that tighter engine maps could be used in races. And so that the new frame could keep up with the competition, it was also made lighter. The team seems to have decided on purpose to skip the first few races of the season so that they can get more information and improve the W14. With this change, the W14 can take the aerodynamic package to the track to help it catch up to its competitors. Now, SalaStamperRacing.com says that this package will come out in April or before, possibly at the Baku Grand Prix. So can something be done to help Mercedes get back on top? The team principal, Toto Wolff, is determined to fix the team's early season problems. In the first race of the 2023 F1 season, Mercedes fell behind Red Bull, Ferrari and Aston Martin because they didn't have enough downforce. Wolff has said that the new idea is already in the wind tunnel, even though it got off to a bad start. The W14 had problems when it was tested before the season, but the team seemed optimistic about how it would do at the race weekend. Well, this was not the case, as the Mercedes cars finished 5th and 7th in qualifying. Even so, the leader of the Brackley team is sure they can fix things before it's too late. But in what way should Mercedes go? Should they stick with their zero-pod design or use what their competitors have come up with? There are no holy cows, Wolff told the media. And we need to decide the development direction that we want to pursue in order to be competitive to win races. Wolff added that Mercedes would look into a variety of options in order to assess the correct development path, including a move away from the zero sidepod approach. He said that the difference between them and Red Bull have doubled, if not tripled, but he's drawing encouragement from the new work being done in the wind tunnels. It's been done in the wind tunnel, but it's not just about the side pods or how the car looks from the outside, he admitted. We have to dig into the data and decide which direction to go in. We've lost a year in development in order to have a steeper development curve, and you just need to take these decisions. Aston Martin took that decision and they came back strong. So if we start from our base, maybe we can come back strong and chase the Red Bulls. That's the ambition. On the other hand, rumours surfaced that Mercedes reportedly had an emergency meeting after getting off to a bad start in the 2023 Formula 1 season, and technical director Mike Elliott was given an ultimatum. Their bad performance in Bahrain made Hamilton and team boss Toto Wolff upset, and Wolff hinted that Mercedes might have to change the way they think about their cars. Formula1.uno said that Mercedes called a meeting to talk about their problems as they tried to turn their season around. Elliott, who oversaw the development of the W14, is under pressure after Hamilton's public criticism, since the 7-time world champion won't be able to compete for regular Grand Prix wins for another season. Even though the W14 doesn't porpoise like its predecessor did, it still doesn't have as much downforce as Red Bull's RB19. Mercedes has already said that they will make changes to their car that will be obvious at the next races. So what's the answer? How can Mercedes get better? Well, they might find the answer where they least expected. Both the qualifying round and the race in Bahrain were won by Aston Martin over Mercedes. The Mercedes power unit, gearbox, hydraulics and rear suspension are all used in the AMR 23. This means that the back end is the same for both teams. Aston Martin also uses the Mercedes F1 wind tunnel until its new high-tech facility is finished next year. This doesn't mean that Mercedes will just copy the Aston Martin, nor does it mean that they will share information about aerodynamic design, which is illegal. Wolff's point is the fact that Aston Martin used the Red Bull idea, which has become common with these new rules, shows that it can work with the back end of that car. Last year, Aston Martin showed off a car that moved around a lot. In May, a big change to the car's side pods made it go in a different direction, like a Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton said after the Bahrain Grand Prix, "Half of their car is ours and they do their aerodynamics in our wind tunnel, so we have some work to do." So Mercedes should watch what Aston Martin does closely to see if there are any lessons to be learned. It will do the same thing with the other 8 cars on the grid because it wants to find the right idea that will give it better performance right away and more room to grow in the long run. All teams do this, and it's known that Mercedes tried a side pod geometry more like Red Bull's in CFD and the wind tunnel, but they didn't get the numbers they needed to make a change. But it's likely that the team has already done more work to look into these options. This could help it join the growing number of companies that were started because of the Red Bull idea. Sergio Perez joked that it was nice to see 3 Red Bull cars on the podium after Alonso finished 3rd. It's clear that the planned Imola upgrade, which the team says will change the look of the car, but which technical director Mike Elliott says will still go in the Mercedes direction, won't be enough. Mercedes ruled for many years because they used brute force in their design. They had the best engine, the most money, and built their aero package with the goal of getting the most downforce. Red Bull's aero package was better and more complicated than Ferrari's, but they didn't have enough power to catch Mercedes. The budgets of the other teams were less than half of those of the top 3 teams, which took them out of the running. Now that the cost cap has put a limit on the amount of money that can be spent, new rules seem to favour complicated design over the peak downforce idea. This cost cap is now helping teams that used to depend more on the skill of their drivers than on sheer numbers of workers. This means that Mercedes might have a hard time catching up to Red Bull unless they hire a talented driver from another team. So what do you think? Can Mercedes come back on top, or are we up for another mediocre season from the Silver Arrows? Let us know in the comments down below, and as always, see you next time.